just like O said, like we instill confidence, the coach instill confidence that any shot you take, shoot it with confidence because we trust you and we trust that you're going to make it. And I feel like that's just really helped us down the line because no matter who comes in, no matter who steps up, we're all just really happy for each other.
Next woman up isn't a slogan, it's a threat. That's what Fever fans were shouting online after Indiana marched into Los Angeles with half a rotation in street clothes and still snatched their most important win of the season. And yes, let's confirm what you came for right up top. Short-handed Indiana beat a team that had owned them all year. Aliyah Boston put up 22 points, 11 boards, a career-high 6 steals, and iced the night with a final, clean rip that ended the game. Odyssey Sims, 31 years old, not in the starting five, playing the team that once had her name stitched on the locker, took over late and dropped the floater with 13.6 seconds left that shut the building down. That happened. Now, let's talk about why it landed like a thunderclap, what Boston actually meant with the message that went viral after the buzzer, and how Sims, of all people, became the closer Indiana didn't know it was waiting for. Stick around because we're going to unpack the injuries, the standing squeeze, the toughness you could see on Lexi Hull's face, literally, and yes, the question everyone keeps asking in whispers at shoot-around. When does Caitlin Clark come back, and what does that do to a locker room that just proved it can win without her? You clicked because you felt the shift. You felt the stakes. This wasn't a pretty mid-August matinee. It was a stress test with playoff weight. 3 meetings, 3 losses to LA already this year. For losses in Indiana's last 5 coming in. 6th place fragile. 9th place hungry and closing. Most teams fold when 4 guards go missing in the same week. The Fever didn't get that memo. And here's the contrarian twist that changes the whole temperature of the conversation. This wasn't a miracle night. This was the system working exactly the way Boston described it. Trust, confidence, next woman up, and the quick proof is in how the game was actually won. Not with some miracle heave, but with layered, grown-up basketball, timely stops, extra possessions, and veterans who refused to shrink when the ball found them. Here's your roadmap for the ride. First, the unexpected hero who dragged the game into Indiana's hands. Then, the centerpiece who slammed the door shut and explained the philosophy behind it. After that, the bruises, the bodies, the culture, how a rotation stitched together with grit survived every run. And finally, the open question with 5 games left and a city buzzing. The timeline, the risk, and the upside of the one star who hasn't yet taken off the warm-up. Start with the surprise, because the surprise is what flips a season's tone. Odyssey Sims did not enter this one with neon arrows over her head on the scouting report. When you talk Indiana matchups, you circle Aliyah Boston. You shade Kelsey Mitchell. You've got notes on Natasha Howard. Sims? You respect the resume, but you don't plan your entire night around a backup guard. That's the expectation. Reality was a 21-point masterclass in timing, poise, and veteran audacity. Early touches? Simple, clean, decisive. She wasn't hunting heat checks. She was stealing oxygen. When LA tried to speed the game into chaos, she split it with a 3. When the sparks slowed to squeeze the half-court, she knifed through with that flat-out mean lefty take. She played like someone who has lived the entire roller coaster, signed, cut, hardship deals out of the league, back and again, and decided that anxiety is the enemy of execution. Context. Indiana's leading scorer did not have her cleanest night. You could feel shots rattle that usually sting. That's the moment where games slip. One more empty trip, one more sparks run, and suddenly the floor tilts. Application. Sims became the pressure valve. She took pace in her hands and squeezed it like a metronome. Push when the lane's there, pull when the clock is your friend. Framing. That's what a closer looks like when you don't have a closer on the marquee. And she did it against the jersey she used to wear, which adds an edge you can't fake. Rivalry isn't always about logos. Sometimes it's the hallway you know by memory, the trainer who still nods at you on the way in, the basket you used to warm up on. She owned that space. Hold that image of control, and keep it ready for later, because Indiana still needed a finisher. With 13.6 left, ball in her hands, season teetering on a single possession, Sims rose into the quick floater she's rehearsed for years, the shot built for heavy feet and crowded paint.
Net.
Not bank, not friendly roll.
Clean.
That's 5 straight points to flip the scoreboard and the mood of the entire night. Look at her face jogging back. No scream. No arm windmill.
Calm.
That's a professional who knew the moment before the moment knew her. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. The line she offered later wasn't a caption. It was the thesis of the game. Now bring the camera to the anchor. Aliyah Boston. Second act, strongest point. If Sims was the scalpel, Boston was the entire operating room: lights, tools, heartbeat monitor. She didn't just score. She controlled the texture of the game. 22 on the board, 11 swallowed off the glass, for dimes to keep the air moving, and a career-high 6 thefts, the kind that break rhythm and seed doubt. Context: this wasn't a night anyone would call elegant. It got ugly. It got grindy. Passes went sideways. Possessions ended with bodies on the floor. Application: Boston turned that grit into currency. Lose a handle? She makes it a layup with her hands in the right place. LA thinks it has a mismatch? She turns that idea into a jump hook on the other end and makes them question the scouting. Framing: the best players don't just add numbers. They reframe what's possible in a game, and Boston's fingerprint was on every category that defines winning when it's not pretty: deflections, second chances, end-of-clock poise, and the moment. You remember the last frame because it's the one that clarifies everything that came before it. 1.9 seconds left, LA hunting a final gasp, the kind of scrambled possession that so often turns into whistle roulette. Instead, Boston read it like a book she'd already annotated.
Reach.
Rip.
End.
Not let's see what happens, but we decide what happens. The public called it a steal. It felt like a thesis defense. When the mics found her after the handshakes, the message that had Fever fans buzzing wasn't a victory lap. It was a blueprint. Next woman up. Not cute, not corporate, not stitched on a hoodie. The coaches trust you to shoot with confidence. We trust that you'll make the right play. We're genuinely happy for each other when the moment finds someone new. It's one thing to say that in October. It's another thing to live it in late August on the road with a rotation held together by tape and belief. Boston didn't just say it. She embodied it for 35 minutes, then explained it in 15 seconds. You could see that culture written on Lexi Hull's face. 2 black eyes from the last collision, and she still chased through screens like rent was due, dove on the floor like the season was under the parquet, and planted on closeouts like the bruise was somebody else's problem. That's not vibes. That's a choice. One player plays through pain, and the rest of the bench runs out of excuses. And that's the quiet alchemy of this game. Pain becomes permission. Permission to be tougher than the script says you should be. Add in Natasha Howard bullying short corners into spin cycle highlights, Aerial Powers walking in with sixth woman gasoline and tossing sparks on every possession, the deflections that turn into steals, and the bobbles that turn into extra clocks, and suddenly the team that was supposed to be fragile looks like the one teaching a seminar in late-season composure. Let's widen the frame, because this win didn't float in a vacuum. The standings mattered like gravity. Indiana came in 6th, LA hovering in 9th with the broom from earlier meetings still hanging over the series. Drop this one, and you invite the room to get smaller. Take it, and you force the table to reset. The Fever had lost 4 of 5. The noise had crept in. The questions were familiar and fair. Are they sliding at the worst time? Is the schedule catching up? That's where the expectation was pointing. Reality, delivered possession by possession, said something different. Survive every trip, turn 50 to 50 balls into 70 to 30 balls, and make the last 2 minutes the place where your habits cash checks. Ugly? Absolutely. Useful? Even more. You don't need art in August. You need answers, and because we promised it, here's the loop you've been waiting for. The name that wasn't on the floor but still lives in every conversation. Caitlin Clark. The groin injury that benched her for weeks turned a top-end offense into a committee. 17 straight absences is a canyon. But there's noise. The good kind. Back in practice gear. Warming up in shit-arounds. Moving through sets in front of coaches tracking every step. Not a green light yet, not a reckless race against the clock, but the closest she's looked to herself since the day it all stopped. 5 games left. The calendar is a tyrant, and the standings are petty. That's the tension in the room. You don't rush the piece that changes your ceiling, but you also don't ignore the chance to recalibrate the entire offense before the tournament really begins. What does her return look like inside the blueprint Boston laid down? Here's where expectation and reality can collide again. Expectation says, star comes back, ball tilts toward her, everyone else resets to lesser roles. Team improves because talent is talent.